In Korean showbiz, some stars become famous because they feel safe, warm, and easy to love. Lee Soo Hyuk built his fame in the opposite way. Born on May 31, 1988, he first entered entertainment as a runway model in 2006, long before he became known as an actor. From the beginning, he did not look like someone created for ordinary leading man fame. He looked colder, sharper, stranger, the kind of face that could make beauty feel unsettling instead of comforting. And somehow, that became his greatest advantage. Over the years, Lee Soo Hyuk did something very few performers can do. He turned an unusual image into a lasting showbiz identity. He moved from fashion into acting, built recognition through drama and film, and gradually became known for projects that matched his dark, elegant aura. His career did not rise through one simple formula. It grew through repetition, visual impact, and the sense that even when he was not the loudest actor in the room, he could still dominate the frame. More recently, he has been especially associated with titles like Tomorrow and S-Line, while also continuing to evolve professionally, including a 2025 move from YG Entertainment to Saram Entertainment. But Lee Soo Hyuk's story is not only about style and success. Like many stars who live heavily through image, he has also moved through the more uncomfortable side of showbiz. Rumors, public debate, and controversy surrounding both his projects and the conditions around his public appearances. Lee Soo Hyuk's career in showbiz began in fashion, not acting. He debuted as a runway model in 2006 in designer Jung Wook-jun's Lone Costume Show, then built his early name through Korean fashion brands and editorials for magazines such as GQ, Bazaar, and Elle. That background matters because it explains why his screen image always felt different from the average actors. He did not enter entertainment through warmth or familiarity. He entered through silhouette, posture, and visual impact. Even before he became an actor, Lee Soo Hyuk was already learning how to hold attention without speaking much at all. His transition into acting came after appearances in music videos in 2009 and 2010, and then early screen work including The Boy from Ipanema and dramas like White Christmas, What's Up, and Vampire Idol. These projects were important, not necessarily because they made him an instant superstar, but because they established the exact kind of niche he could dominate in Korean entertainment. Roles that benefited from his sharp, slightly otherworldly look and his ability to make even quiet scenes feel tense. He was not trying to look like every other leading man, and that difference slowly became his strength. As his acting career developed, Lee Soo Hyuk kept building a showbiz identity that was unusually coherent. Some stars reinvent themselves dramatically from role to role. Lee Soo Hyuk did something more strategic. He deepened the image people already associated with him. Through projects like Scholar Who Walks the Night, Born Again, Doom at Your Service, and later Tomorrow, he kept returning to a screen presence built on elegance, danger, and emotional distance. That consistency helped him stand out in an industry where many actors compete for the same kind of roles and public image. It also meant that his career was never just about performance alone. It was about branding, atmosphere, and becoming instantly recognizable within the visual language of Korean drama. His success in showbiz was not limited to acting either. Lee Soo Hyuk remained heavily tied to fashion and luxury image building, continued appearing in major editorials, and picked up image-based recognition such as Best New Actor at the 2015 MBC Drama Awards for Scholar Who Walks the Night, and later style-related honors including Best Style Icon, Male, at the 2024 Elle Style Awards. Those milestones show that his success has always lived at the intersection of acting and image, a rare combination that made him more than just another actor with good visuals. Lee Soo Hyuk's career did not explode in the usual way. There was no single moment where he suddenly transformed from unknown performer into a universally accepted mainstream star. Instead, his breakthrough happened through accumulation, and that may be exactly why his success in showbiz feels more distinctive. He first built recognition through modeling after debuting on the runway in 2006, then gradually expanded into music videos, dramas, and films, layering one kind of visibility on top of another until his image became impossible to ignore. What made that rise so effective was the fact that he never looked interchangeable. In Korean entertainment, where actors often compete within similar leading man formulas, Lee Soo Hyuk offered something visually sharper and more unusual. He looked aristocratic, distant, and slightly dangerous, an image that gave him a natural advantage in roles requiring mystery, emotional restraint, or dark charisma. That became especially visible in projects like The Scholar Who Walks the Night, where his presence matched the tone of the drama so well that it pushed him into a new level of recognition. His work there earned him Best New Actor in a miniseries at the 2015 MBC Drama Awards, which marked one of the clearest early signs that the industry was no longer seeing him as only a model-turned-actor, but as a legitimate performer with real screen impact. From there, Lee Soo Hyuk's success in showbiz became more stable and more layered. He kept building his acting resume through dramas and films, but he also maintained something many actors struggle to preserve once they enter mainstream screen work: a highly distinctive visual identity. That identity mattered because it allowed him to remain memorable even when he was not always carrying the biggest role. In other words, his success was not only based on leading man status. It was based on presence, the ability to make audiences remember him, talk about him, and associate him with a very specific mood. That long-term consistency paid off. By the time he became widely associated with Tomorrow and later S-Line, Lee Soo Hyuk had already spent years turning style, performance, and aura into one coherent public image. He was no longer simply successful because he was visually striking. He was successful because he had learned how to transform that striking image into a career language the industry could keep using. He could move between fashion, television, and image-based celebrity culture without losing coherence, which is much harder than it looks. His continued relevance was also underscored by later image recognition, such as Best Style Icon, Male, at the 2024 Elle Style Awards, showing that his place in showbiz remained tied not only to acting credits, but to the larger cultural power of his image. And that is what made Lee Soo Hyuk's success feel so unusual. He did not become unforgettable by trying to look ordinary enough for everyone. He became unforgettable by making strangeness, elegance, and distance feel like strengths the industry could not replace. What made Lee Soo Hyuk last in showbiz was not only talent and not only beauty. It was the fact that he understood something many performers never fully master. In entertainment, image is not separate from career. Image becomes career. By the time Lee Soo Hyuk had spent years moving between modeling and acting, his public identity had become unusually clear. He was not just another handsome actor competing for romantic leads. He had built a much sharper position than that. The industry began seeing him as someone who could bring a very specific atmosphere into a project: cold elegance, dark intensity, emotional distance, and the kind of visual impact that could make even a still shot feel dramatic. That consistency is a major reason he remained relevant across years in both fashion and screen work. His success also came from understanding how to protect what made him different. Many stars become more mainstream by softening their edges. Lee Soo Hyuk did not fully do that. Instead, he made his unusual image more usable. He let Korean showbiz adapt to him rather than erasing the qualities that made him memorable in the first place. That is why projects like Tomorrow worked so well for him. He did not have to fight against his aura in order to fit the role. He used it as part of the role's power. And by 2025, his lead presence in S-Line, a dark fantasy thriller released on Wave, showed that the industry still considered that image marketable, current, and strong enough to anchor major genre work. Outside acting, Lee Soo Hyuk also maintained real influence through fashion and style culture. That side of his career was never just decoration. It helped keep him visible even between acting projects and reinforced the idea that he was not merely an actor who used to model, but a figure whose value in showbiz lived at the intersection of performance, luxury, and visual identity. His long-running fashion credibility, combined with recognition like Best Style Icon, male, at the 2024 Elle Style Awards, shows that his influence was still extending beyond drama casting alone. Another sign of his durable position in showbiz is how the industry kept expanding his uses. In October 2024, he took on hosting duties for the audition program Project 7, his first MC role since debut. That move mattered because it showed confidence in his broader star power. Hosting requires more than looking striking. It requires enough authority and presence to guide viewers through a format built on attention and tension. In other words, Lee Soo Hyuk was no longer being treated only as a specialized visual actor. He was being trusted as a public-facing entertainment figure with enough status to carry format, tone, and brand value. Even his agency move in July 2025, when he left YG Entertainment after about 8 years and signed with Saram Entertainment, says something about his position in the industry. That kind of transition usually happens when a star's career enters a new strategic phase. It suggests that Lee Soo Hyuk was not fading out of showbiz, but actively repositioning himself for his next chapter. And that may be the real reason Lee Soo Hyuk became so lasting in Korean entertainment. He did not survive by becoming ordinary. He survived by making sure the industry kept needing exactly the kind of presence only he could provide. For someone like Lee Soo Hyuk, controversy does not always arrive in the loud, explosive way people usually expect from celebrity scandal. It often takes a more complicated form. Because when a star's career is built so heavily on image, on elegance, mystery, distance, and control, even small disruptions can feel magnified. The public starts reading more into everything. A casting choice, a project's theme, a public appearance, a rumor, even the way a star carries himself in front of fans. That is part of what makes Lee Soo Hyuk's position in showbiz so delicate. His public identity has always been unusually visual, which means people do not just watch his work, they watch him. And once that happens, the line between performance and public projection becomes harder to control. One recent example came through S-Line, the 2025 thriller in which Lee Soo Hyuk played Detective Han Ji-uk. The series drew attention partly because of its provocative premise, a world where red lines reveal people's sexual relationships. Lee Soo Hyuk himself described that concept as provocative and tied to the exposure of people's secret private lives, which helps explain why the drama naturally invited public debate. Viewers responded with mixed reactions after the premiere, while other coverage emphasized how the show sparked broader conversations about privacy, shame, and social hypocrisy. In other words, even when the controversy was not centered on Lee Soo Hyuk personally, his image became attached to bold, uncomfortable material that kept public attention around him intense. But the more personal controversy came later, and it revealed a very different side of showbiz pressure. In August and September 2025, Lee Soo Hyuk became the center of public concern after a fan meeting in China reportedly stretched far beyond reasonable limits. Korea Jungang Daily reported that he was made to sign autographs for thousands of fans for around 12 hours because of excessive ticket sales by organizers. Shortly afterward, his agency clarified that the full event lasted 7 hours, including the main performance and extra fan service time, while still expressing regret about the situation. The exact length became part of the debate, but the larger issue was the same. Fans and observers were outraged that an actor's public image and sense of duty to fans appeared to be used in ways many saw as exploitative. That incident matters because it shows the hidden cost of Lee Soo Hyuk's particular kind of fame. His image is built on restraint, professionalism, and composure. So even in a situation where many stars might visibly break, complain, or walk away, the expectation around him was still to endure gracefully. That is the cruelty of image-driven celebrity. The more controlled and elegant you seem, the more the industry assumes you can keep absorbing pressure without public collapse. There have also been waves of online speculation around his demeanor in fan interactions, with some fans reading his behavior as concerning, while others pushed back and defended his privacy. Those discussions were speculative rather than confirmed, but they fit a larger pattern in Lee Soo Hyuk's career. The public is constantly trying to decode a man whose power has always come partly from being unreadable. And maybe that is the real controversy of Lee Soo Hyuk's career. Not one giant scandal that defines him forever, but the fact that a star built on image can never fully control how the world interprets that image once it becomes public property. Today, Lee Soo Hyuk stands in a rare position in Korean showbiz. He is no longer just a model who successfully crossed into acting, and no longer simply an actor remembered for having extraordinary visuals. He has become something more lasting than that. A figure whose career has been built on turning image into identity, then identity into longevity. From runway work starting in 2006 to acting recognition, style awards, hosting, and recent genre-led projects like S-Line, his path shows a form of success that is not always explosive, but deeply durable. What makes his story compelling is that it captures both the glamour and the discomfort of showbiz. On one side, there is career growth, fashion influence, critical visibility, and the power of becoming instantly recognizable in a crowded industry. On the other, there is the strange burden of living so heavily through image, where even bold project choices, public appearances, or fan-facing events can turn into debate, scrutiny, or pressure. The reported controversy around his China fan meeting in 2025 made that especially clear, showing how quickly professionalism and public expectation can become something more exploitative when a celebrity is expected to endure everything gracefully. And maybe that is the final truth about Lee Soo Hyuk's career. He did not become unforgettable by trying to be easy, ordinary, or universally comforting. He became unforgettable by staying strange, elegant, and controlled in an industry that often rewards sameness. That is what gave him power. And perhaps that is also what made surviving showbiz far more complicated than it looked from the outside.